Valerie, could you say a few words about your background and what it has to do with this event today?
I am a longtime friend and collaborator with Doug Engelbart. I first met Doug in 1984. I was working as a journalist. We were doing a television program called Silicon Valley Boomtown out of KTEH in San Jose. And I was in the Stanford Library doing research for this program, and Henry Lowood, who was the head of special collections, came up to me and said, I hear you're from the television station, you really have to see this film I have from 1968. You're not going to believe it. And by the way, could you transfer it from film to video so that it can be preserved? So I was like, oh, I'm so busy, you know, we're almost done with the program, too late. And he said, no, no, you don't understand. This is really important. So I took the film and agreed to transfer it, and I hooked it up through the projector and got my video camera, because that's how we transferred film to video in those days. And I'm watching this 1968 Mother of All Demos, and I was like, wow, stop the press. We need to add an Engelbart video. And so we went and tracked down Doug Engelbart and interviewed him for the program. When it aired, Doug called the station and asked if we could come to his house, and he asked me if I would help him articulate his vision to share it with the world. And I've pretty much been working with him on that since then.
I understand that you wrote a biography of him.
Yes, I spent many years, he was my mentor for many years, and I spent 6 years teaching a class with Doug. So Doug was the mentor. He didn't actually participate every single time, but we were studying the work of Doug Engelbart and collaborating with scholars around the world. And during this period, Eileen Clegg and I decided to conduct interviews with Doug, which went for 6 years. And we then worked with Doug to refine and refine and refine. And we wrote a very slim book that outlines his ideas at a very basic level, and then got other Engelbart scholars to contribute chapters about how they were applying Doug's work.
Could you sum up his philosophy or vision in a couple of sentences?
Yes. First, the book is called The Engelbart Hypothesis, Dialogues with Douglas Engelbart. And the hypothesis is that the world the world is facing urgent and complex problems, and that we need new tools and new ways of thinking and behaving to be able to overcome these problems and survive as a planet.
Does his philosophy explain what those new tools and new ways of thinking are?
Well, Doug's philosophy is very much descriptive rather than prescriptive. So he's not giving a prescription of this is how you have to do it. He describes how we can't use old methods of thinking and old methods of creating tools to create tools that can confront the problems that were made with the tools that created those problems. And so he's really calling for a new way of thinking that harnesses the collective intelligence in order to be able to scale very rapidly to address the urgent changes and problems that are occurring worldwide.
In order to utilize what he describes as collective intelligence, would people have to change their normal method of thinking?
Some people will have to change their normal method of thinking. I mean, I think today Ade really summed it up, of that one of the things about collective intelligence means that we really have to start looking at ways that we can creatively share knowledge. And one of the problems with that is that there's no good tools for sharing massive quantities of knowledge. So it's very hard to stay on top of things. So Doug's methodology creates maps and new ways of displaying data that we have not explored, so that we can really see large amounts of data, large amounts of knowledge, put them into structured arguments. So what he means by structures and maps, so that people can literally see what exists now and create very rapidly strategies, both long-term strategic planning as well as tactical planning, to address the issues that are confronting us.
Does this assume that if people all have the same information, they'll all come to the same conclusions?
No, not at all. What it means is that you will be able to look at data and make intelligent conclusions based on the best data we have currently. Because right now, there's a lot of good data that's really not available to people who are making the decisions. So he was saying that this was a dynamic knowledge repository, and it was about allowing people to have an intelligence quotient. In other words, he said that the infrastructure that you have to support a society determines the capability of that society. So just because we have all these capable tools doesn't necessarily mean that we will behave intelligently, but it does allow us the chance to behave intelligently. So by improving our infrastructure, we're improving our intelligence quotient, not our actual intelligence. Just like the same people who are intelligent sometimes make bad choices, even though they're capable of making a better choice.
Now you say that Doug was interested in solving the most urgent problems of humanity. What type of problems was he referring to?
He was definitely referring to things like global warming, issues around water, food, hunger, war. Corruption was very high on Doug's list. He also followed very closely the work of the Millennium Project. And so oftentimes he would cite whatever they had cited, he would often cite those same issues.
Do you think his vision is going to become a reality at some point?
I think yes. If I didn't, I don't think I would have spent the last 30 years following it.
What did you find most impressive about him as a person?
His humility. He was such a humble man, and his steadfastness of keeping his vision. Because oftentimes leaders like Doug, who many people call a prophet, in our society, we tend to think of the leaders as these sort of charismatic, ambitious people. And I think that Doug really broke that mold in that he was a very humble, really shy person.
Do you have any last-minute comments or observations about him to finish up?
Or a good anecdote?
I think I want to just say one thing that Doug told me many years ago, and this is really for the software developers out there, but once, this was in the 90s, I said, Doug, I'm just starting to get involved with software development, and we have this really cool tool we're working on. Do you have any advice for a young software developer? And he looked at me and he said, yes. Make sure that whatever you do is very modular. Make everything as modular as possible, because you know that some of your ideas are going to endure and some are not. The problem is you don't know which one will and which one won't. So you want to be able to separate the pieces so that those pieces can carry on and move forward.